Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The town board of selectmen is looking at acquiring a parcel along Main Street for parking purposes. We solicited RFPs, we got pricing back, and they wanted to do an appraisal to compare the asking price versus the market price, or what they believe the market would be the price. So we ordered the appraisal. And my budget doesn't contain funds to pay for that. So I'm asking for a reserve fund transfer of $3,400 to pay for the appraisal. We did solicit quotes. We got one quote, which was $3,400.
Where is 501 Main Street?
It's an old hotel, kind of a yellow thing.
I think it's sort of a motel type, wasn't it?
Motel thing. And it goes downhill and there's units in the back.
Remember, it's across, I think it's next to that old subway, which is across from the Whistling Swan.
Or next to 1786 house, right?
Yeah, maybe, somewhere around there.
So it's not a vacant lot then?
No,
No, there's structures on it.
So,
We would purchase it as vacant land.
okay, because I'm going to say, if you're going to make it a parking lot, then you're assuming additional cost of taking it all down.
That was contemplated in the RFP.
You just make that up.
So we would acquire it as
I'm sorry?
raw land, vacant land.
Rowland, okay.
So, just picturing where that parcel is, and so why would the town want to have a parking lot at that parcel, or that part of town? It doesn't seem connected to any other town facilities out there. Couldn't the property be bought by, at some point, if not immediately, by someone else who can continue to use it, make it a taxable property for the town?
They don't know if they want to purchase it at this point. This was part of the review. They solicited RFPs for parking along Main Street. This was the one they received, and this is part of the vetting process.
So there's a thought in mind to start this, that the town feels there's a need to obtain at its expense parking along Main Street.
Yes.
But it's not directly for any town facilities that are there. This is just creating public parking spaces and more public parking spaces.
Yes. It's for people that want to visit those businesses along Main Street, walk from business to business, restaurant to restaurant, those type of things.
About how many spaces do you think could fit on that?
This
If
one would fit 25 to 30, 27 comes to mind.
So if this pays for the market study and they want to go forward with the actual purchase after it comes back, are these funds, is it something that could come out of the CPA funds?
I don't know. This would have to be a town meeting issue.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you thought that far ahead, if it's something the CPA could pay for, because I don't know if parking is considered active, you know?
I don't know. I think, I didn't.
I don't know.
I haven't thought that.
Well,
I'm here to ask for the value, the cost of the appraisal, not the
You have an idea.
value process of the parcel for parking.
So some of us are jumping to the next step. If you have an idea as to what the parcel might be worth, or what we might have to pay.
That's part of the negotiations between the town and the property owner.
Which are probably private at this
Yeah.
point,
We-
I would expect.
That's a fair answer.
A good assumption.
Yeah, but purchase of a property would have to go to town meeting. I think it's
Right.
I think it's a 2/3 vote even.
Well, I'm just looking, if you're looking
Right.
like, to purchase the property is gonna cost you $500,000, and then you have to tear down the structures, and that's gonna cost you another $500,000. And then, long-term, it's gonna be a, $1.3 million project for 30 parking spaces.
Well, as
But I
I said,
suppose
we
we're waiting.
intend to buy the property if we bought the property, it would include the raising of the structures in the purchase price.
Oh,
Okay,
As
all
I
right,
said, if we purchase it as vacant land.
oh, okay.
okay. I thought the way I understood when you said that is that that's just what you were gonna pay for, but then we would have to take down the structures after.
No,
Okay,
Oh,
those are part of
the process.
okay, fair enough.
Oh,
I don't have, how much is the request for?
3,400. And I did I did ask around a little bit, because that seemed high to me versus residential appraisals, which are usually under 500, but that is about a normal rate.
Okay.
Yeah, they're quite pricey to do a commercial.
Yes.
I didn't realize that
Comps are
myself.
difficult to come by, square footage, cost basis.
Yeah, yeah.
So if the plan is to raise the buildings that are on the lot, the appraisal is going to be the land and the building. What does that matter then? I guess it's, the purchase price will include the raising of the building, but why would you go and spend an appraisal when it really isn't going to be what you're looking for?
The Board of Selectmen, as part of their vetting process of the RFP,
Response wanted an appraisal to look at the market price of the parcel.
Of the parcel with the building, presumably,
Yes.
because that's what it would be. And why wouldn't, I guess, I mean, if this is the going rate for appraisals, great, but it just seems like a lot of money if you guys decide not to even move forward to buy it. So, what are the other avenues you can go to? Do you really need an appraisal? I don't know what the asking price is, but can't you just, maybe it's not a town thing, but you just want to try to negotiate that down.
To what? To what number?
Well, surely you must know, I mean, in residential, you just get, you want to know how much your house is worth, you go and ask your realtor, a market study, tell them you want to list your house. That's pretty much an appraisal.
But it's not an appraisal.
It's only worth what someone wants to buy it for,
That's correct.
so,
But when you're dealing with public funds, I believe the Board of Selectmen wanted to make sure whatever number they may or may not agree to was supported by market data.
Will the appraisal be broken out in terms of the land and structure, so at least do you expect to have detail?
What I hear you saying is there's a piece of property with structure on it. The town is looking to buy just the property. So you're gonna go back and say, if the structure wasn't there, this lot of so many acres situated in this location is worth X dollars. And that's what the town would use to kind of negotiate against. Then the buyer has to say, is it worth that for me to spend the money to take the structure down to get the amount of money the town says the vacant land is worth, versus other options I have to sell the property as is. That's the way I
What it
hear
is,
what you're
is
saying.
the owner of the property put a number on it. The Board of Selectmen want to know if that number's a good number.
Are asbestos issues contemplated?
Not for the town. It
Could
would be the
you,
responsibility of the property owner to take the structures down.
and to take any precautionary steps in light of possible unhealthy constituent materials?
Yes.
Okay. And town would be held harmless?
That would be part of the purchase and sale contract.
Excuse me, thank you.
So to follow up on Joni's question there, I see a point that the appraisal will set a basis for the town is to value what it's willing to pay for that. But there could be some preliminary first steps. So we have assessors downstairs who understand how to value property. They certainly do it for tax purposes. There are other sources where you could at least sit here and say, the number that we're being asked for seems to be in the right ballpark. It's worth getting a more refined number through an appraisal process.
And that's where we are.
Okay.
so if the town wants the lot and not the building, why don't you just say, okay, we'll give you X for it, based on whatever. We have a fund that was approved for demolition of properties.
Then we would
Why don't you
assume
just
any
demolish it?
liability for hazardous material.
I'm sorry?
I think it's the intent to buy the property with the buildings gone,
So they would remove the buildings before you even took
possession.
possession?
Yes.
They would have to. Otherwise,
Yes.
I'm not sure you would be held harmless, because you'd be the owner.
One of Joni's questions brings back, I want to go back to one of my other points too. Going back to the CPA funds, if this is something that could be funded through CPA in their administration budget has the money to pay for exactly this type of thing.
For the appraisal, Kevin?
Yeah, that was administration funds are earmarked for that sort of thing, right?
Exactly.
There you go.
But we don't know. Not sure what category it would go under.
I don't either. I'm just wondering if it was looked at and ruled out, and if so, why, and just looking, if we're looking for, I mean, we already allocated funds to do exactly this someplace.
In fact, I think we raised the CPA administration funds this year. I knew there was a reason to bring the book.
I actually am not against this idea. I think having an official documented
22,000.
appraisal is a good thing, but I'm not sure, I'm just curious if all the,
Yeah, we have 22,000 in the administration.
yeah, but, I mean, again, is it something those funds could be used for? It wasn't investigated. Because that,
Isn't one recreation, one affordable housing, and I forget what the third one is.
Historical and open space.
open space collection, I mean,
Yeah, this
I mean-
won't be open space. This is going to be an improved parking area.
I mean,
Yes.
on some of our open space lots that we were talking, collected with their funds, they're talking about putting parking lots.
As an
How's it different?
accessory use to the recreation.
Yeah, okay, is that how it is? It's accessory? All right.
Yeah, I don't know that a standalone parking lot would come under any of those categories.
Probably not, but I just wanted to see if it was investigated and ruled.
Yeah.
That's always a good thought.
So I'm with Kevin. If the town were to go out and seek to purchase a piece of property, and it'll be seeking funds later on to support that, having an appraisal is a
Well, it's a
reasonable
piece of
step to be taken to justify the request that may be coming to the town in the future. What we're doing is spending some money towards an idea of, does the town want to have a town-owned parking lot in the center of Main Street, is assuming it moves forward there. I don't know quite whether I'm for or against that just yet, but if you're trying to take the first step to get there, this seems like a reasonable step. And
I mean, I think you would, if it does go to town meeting, I think they would ask if they've done their due diligence
Right.
with an appraisal.
And all I'm asking is, I know we set aside funds for this.
Yeah,
in other
I know.
places.
I can't really imagine that it would come
No,
under
it-
CPA.
I can see
So,
now.
to your point, I will be asking for some project funds in my budget for next year, so there are things that I would like to be able to do engineering-wise, maybe some additional expertise on certain things that I'm working on, so you may see an enhanced request in my department next year for similar things. Would not be.
If a parking lot is established there, given car counts, turning in, turning out around the clock, peaks and valleys, weekends, holidays, do you think that it might be necessary to work with the state to put up any traffic signals or stop signs or any another a lane along a border, implications for bicyclists, and so forth?
This is part of the overall enhancement plan for Route 20. Back in 2014, the town undertook a planning process, and I think these are steps towards implementation. When I first got here, we met with DOT to refresh those plans. They are currently reviewing the product we had in 2014 and updating their comments. And we anticipate, once we get those comments back, to begin the process of applying for grants through the state and through the Regional Metropolitan Planning Organization to begin actually renovating and updating of Route 20.
Got it. Thank you.
Are we ready for a motion?
I just have one more. no potential conflict of interest between anyone in the town involved in the process and the property owner?
I don't believe so. I'm not related to him.
Like, how about members of the Board of Selectmen?
No, I don't think so.
I'm just asking him.
No, I know who owns it,
Oh, okay.
or vaguely, but no.
I believe everybody's current. On that, I don't know.
Thank you.
Jim, did you have any questions? We're talking about the appraisal for,
For 501 Main Street?
Yes.
No, I had no questions. One question, that's just going to be a public parking lot?
Yes.
Town use?
Yeah.
That's the only question I had.
Yeah, for public use.
Apologize, I thought the meeting was set.
I know, that's all right. Probably should have pointed that out to everybody. I think I originally had asked at 7. Anyway, that's okay.
So how about I make a motion that the Finance Committee approve the amount of $3,400 to be transferred to the Town Administrator Purchase of Services account for the purpose of obtaining a appraisal for the property located at 501 Main Street.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Well, that's 8-2. No, I'm sorry.
7.
No, it's not. It's 6 to
6 to 2.
2. Karen's not here.
8, 6, 2.
Yes, it's 6-2. Oh, goodness. All right, and that is 3,400. All right, that's the first one. Second one is the amount of $5,000 requested by the town administrator for purchase of services for costs associated with recruiting new town employees for pre-employment physical, drug tests, and costs of advertising. So,
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and board members. We've depleted our recruiting budget this year between advertising, and I believe we have historically not done pre-employment drug tests and physicals on all new hires. That's something that's my practice, and we've begun that, so I think that led to the depletion of those funds. So I'm asking for an additional $5,000 for the year for recruiting, advertising, and pre-employment drug screens and physicals.
Does that require any changes in our policy manuals or anything like that
No.
for hiring? No?
We do a conditional offer of employment, the conditions being that you pass pre-employment drug screens and physicals, and they agree to that.
And I know we discussed this during the budget process last year, but at the time, I believe the answer was that, even though marijuana is legal, if marijuana was discovered in the drug test, they would not be hired.
We would offer the applicant to pay for their own rescreening. Because not only do you find THC positive, you also find a diluted sample. Either one of those would require a rescreening of the applicant, or at their cost, not at ours.
So the town's policy still officially, though, is that even though marijuana is illegal, if there's marijuana use discovered, it's done. Your employment is finished.
I'm
Or
saying we
for-
would offer the applicant a new drug test at their cost.
Okay. And there's no subsequent drug tests after they're hired, except for people like CDLs and stuff like that?
I'd have to look at our policy. I know the CDLs are random. I think the police have some protocols and the fire has some protocols. I'd have to look at the administrative policies on that.
Okay.
Considering we do allow employees to drive vehicles, we have post-accident policies for drug tests and alcohol tests.
If the candidate chooses to be retested, would the lab involved in the retest be selected by the town?
Yes, they would go to our provider. We have arrangements with providers that do both the pre-employment drug and alcohol or drug test and the physical. We send them to our provider.
I do think that the figure you quote is perfectly reasonable, and it's really a mirror of the hiring conditions in the region and in the country. The search and recruitment of suitable talent in the private sector, public sector, nonprofit organizations, everyone is really beating the bushes and trying to hold quality as much as can be, because you can find a human being, but that's not enough. So I think the number is perfectly justifiable.
I don't have any difficulty with the number and requests, so I'm just trying to figure out, what do we have for current vacancies that you're trying to recruit for, and are you anticipating any openings between now and the end of the fiscal year?
You know, we have
That way.
dispatchers we're recruiting. We hired the new director for the senior center, my new assistant earlier in the year.
I'm just worried about the ones going forward. Those are all been covered by this. Do you have any openings that you're going to start drawing from this fund, or you pretty much
You
full
would always
staffed at
hope
this
you would
point?
not have high turnover, but who knows?
So I had a question. How do we address the situation where someone might be using marijuana or derivatives for medical use? How would you distinguish in that case? In terms
Then
of-
they would provide the tester with their prescription, and we would get information back from the testing facility that they have an approved use. Or it could be any barbiturate or amphetamine. If they have a legal prescription for it, we would get notified of that.
And that wouldn't be something that would exclude them on its face?
Yes, would not. If you have a legitimate medical reason for having the chemical in your system, and you can support that with a prescription from a licensed physician, that would not come back as a positive as it would if you were just smoking marijuana on your own time.
Bruce,
Thank you.
you have a question?
What happens if they pass the second one? Do you have a tiebreaker?
The offer would still stand. They would have completed it affirmatively,
Oh.
but it would have to be timely. We couldn't wait 4 weeks and then take the test. It would have to be almost immediate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Any further questions?
Yeah, so, on the marijuana testing, why would you even bother testing for the marijuana?
Because we're a drug-free workplace.
It's legal.
Not while you're working, it's not.
Well, assuming that they're not smoking pot or taking that when they're working, but marijuana stays in your system for anywhere from a week to 3 weeks.
Right. We're a drug-free workplace.
Nicotine stays.
It's the same thing applies for alcohol. You don't want me to say, well, I'm not drinking on work hours, but I came in having consumed all night long and showed up at 8 o'clock to go to work.
I've had employees, not here, but at other jobs, and we just send them home. But if you're driving a truck or if you're driving a town vehicle, we want to make sure that, you're doing that as conscientiously as you can. And we have an obligation.
I have to believe that they are. You know, if somebody's.
Well, I'm a Reagan-era young man, trust and verify. That's where I'm at with these things.
I don't have a problem with the recruiting regime, but I do have a problem with the marijuana testing. Even my company no longer tests for marijuana.
Although the only thing I can think of that,
Neither does yours.
no, it doesn't, but I'm talking about here, though, the town in some cases receives federal funds, and on a federal level, it's still illegal, and you wouldn't want to, put that at jeopardy.
Right, I understand that, but you didn't say that.
I don't know, I don't really, and that may be an issue, I just look at it as a liability. If we hire somebody that drives a car and hits and kills somebody, the first question someone's going to ask us is, did you check to see if they were an illegal drug user before you hired them? And if the answer is no, then shame on us. Now, if the answer is yes, and somehow over time that person began using drugs or we missed it, I get that. But at least going in, we should know. It's our responsibility and it's our liability because it's you all's tax money that's paying the bill for that liability.
Okay, well, we've been arguing that for a while.
I understand.
Because texting, I think, kills more people than someone on pot.
Well, Joni, let
I
me
don't
ask,
disagree with you.
let me ask you a hypothetical, Joni. Let's say that a Sturbridge town employee is injured on duty, and is sent to a physician for treatment, and that physician is paid by the town, is it acceptable in your view for that physician to be reeking of marijuana while treating the Sturbridge Town employee?
Mary, I'm not going to answer that.
Why not?
What does my opinion in that case matter?
Well, here's why it would matter. That physician would be paid out of tax funds.
Well, I guess it's Harrington's problem at that.
How do you, there are doctors who are not working for hospitals. There are private practice physicians. If you don't have an answer, please say so.
I
But if
just
you,
said I didn't have an answer.
no, you said, why do you have to answer?
So my other question for you, Jeff.
Yes.
Is the recruiting budget last year, if I'm looking at this rightly, was $1,500? Yeah? And you're asking for 5,000?
More.
So,
I was not part of last year's budget development. I don't know where that number came from,
well,
or,
it was 1,500 prior year as well. No problem. I mean, I just think it's a huge jump. But when you were talking about, I think you were answering Mike's question about who you brought on, or who the town brought on, and you mentioned dispatchers. Wouldn't they be covered in
The police budget.
police?
perhaps.
Well, they should be. I know that budget used to contain a line item for drug testing and psychological profiling.
We also test some of the seasonals that drive vehicles.
But that would be DPW.
We've been covering the DPWs, non-CDL drivers,
Okay.
in temps and seasonals.
And it also includes advertising,
Yes,
correct?
in the newspaper.
Okay.
I mean, it is already 1,200 over budget, right?
Right,
Yeah. So really, you're asking for
3,800.
3,800, really. I mean, it's 5,000, but he
Right,
needs
okay, so
3,800
That's what I
more.
was kind of getting at. You're not actually asking for 5,000. You're looking for
Well,
the.
well, he is, because he's already over budget, 1,200, or 1,271. So it would leave him about 3,800
So
left to use.
Like, I know when I used to do the police budget, it was, I'm trying to remember how it was, there was a fixed cost for the psychological test, and I think it was $700. And then there was the drug testing, which was another few $100s. What's the fixed cost for you right now to bring in an employee and do the testing that you see fit? You know,
The drug test is $82. No, excuse me, the drug test is $184.60.
okay. And what's the typical advertising cost for a position?
Don't talk to me.
$549.
Oh, wow.
We have to run it twice, once each week for 2 weeks.
And that is $549 each, or the $549?
That's for both.
Okay, so you're looking at, what, $631 is the cost to bring one person on?
Yeah,
So the $3,800 extra, you're anticipating 6 more people that you might need to bring in this year?
perhaps. If we can do it less expensively on the advertising or something like that, we would find different ways to do that. But the personnel rules require us to advertise for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's not 2 weeks every day. I'm reading that as once each week for 2 weeks.
This is going into purchase of services.
So I take it as he doesn't know how many vacancies he's got coming. He's got a little bit of a cushion in here. Hopefully that comes back at the end of the year. But rather than come out each week
It's only
when he's hired
October
a new
1st
position.
here.
Right.
Yeah,
Only
yeah,
July, we're only in 3
Yeah.
months gone.
3 months in.
early in.
Yeah, so you still have 3/4 of the year left. Mike, are you
You all set?
aiming to make a motion then?
I'm good.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that the Finance Committee transfer from reserve fund to the Town Administrator Purchase of Services account the amount of $5,000 to cover the costs associated with the recruiting new town employees.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Bruce? Or,
Jim.
oh, Jim, sorry. Okay. Any further discussion?
I I think some of the money is warranted. I'm not sure all of it is. So at this point, I still have some questions. So at this point, I'm not comfortable voting for it, but if it passes, so be it.
So I'm kind of with you on that, but, so I just want to get back to the budget from last year. I understand that we moved all of the, like want ads and all that to the town administrative budget. You didn't take out, like, you're not responsible for all the other costs of bringing someone in, like, dispatches, DPW and all that. I thought that was all taken care of departmentally, and that the TA was only responsible for advertising. So I guess if that's the case, why would the TA need all this money?
Well, as you've seen, we've already
Yeah.
depleted the 1,500 and we're 1,200 in the hole doing what we're
More
doing.
money, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to get a comfortable dollar move.
I don't believe that the physicals or the drug screens were universal for new hires. And that's what's driving a lot of this.
What do you mean by that?
I think it's a new practice for us
I-
on some of these employees,
Yeah, I
like
think
temporaries
except for-
and seasonals.
Okay, so, when did that go into effect, I guess? And
April 1st, 2019.
you had plenty of time to put it into the budget.
Well, I didn't know that we weren't doing it
I'm not
when I
putting-
was hired.
I just, I really have a hard time with, this is an unforeseen budget, bucket of money, that's all.
When I've gone through a budget process and I've developed a budget and recommended one to you, I would agree that I should not be here. But I didn't put this budget together, and I don't
know,
understand
not
the
that.
assumptions that went in. Oh, I understand. There should not be unforeseen things unless the world comes to an end. Or there should be some.
I don't know if you need to go to that extreme, but.
Well, I understand, but generally speaking, the budget should include enough funds to do these things.
I guess, April 1st, maybe a flag should have gone up for someone, I don't know, to mention it. 'Cause
I only use that date because that was my first day on the job.
Got it.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Abstaining? 6-1.
Yes.
I think my math was good at that time. Where's this? And the last one is a small one from the building inspector for $426 for salaries and wages. And I believe the purpose was that they're finally getting that new permitting software up and running, and this is for, probably what, is it for training, a little bit of training and learning it and all that?
Not really. It has to do with the new software, but it's that combined with the 110 inspections that we have to do every year. It's really taking those inspections and loading the new data into that software. So it's coming together at the same time. So that's kind of driving the need for the additional hours. There are timeframes involved in the 110s as we're implementing the new software. So the building department actually requested substantially more hours, but I figured 20 hours of overtime would be sufficient. And that's what I'm
Do
recommending
you
and
think that will do it?
Yeah.
What is a 110? Just for-
It's an inspection of the businesses in town. It's section 110 of the code. We call them 110s, but it's a process where we have to send the police, fire, building inspector, health out to these different businesses, and it's coordinated now in the building department. Kevin, the economic development coordinator, organized kind of a process. And Cindy, the building officials administrative assistant, is integral to all that. So she's going to be doing a lot of the data work and issuing and using the software to do this.
Just a question, you used the word, overtime. The request states that it's straight time hours, so.
It is straight time hours.
So as long as the weekly amount is kept at or under 40 hours,
That's correct.
It's paid at straight time.
And that's how it'll be distributed to the
Thank you.
department.
Question, similar to the testing, can we assume that this would be taken into account for next year's budget as well?
Oh, well, hopefully we'll have the new software and the new process kind of down, so it won't be necessary.
It's not the only department that has to adjust and use the new permitting software, correct?
Well, this department's, it's about the annual inspections coming to a head at the time we're implementing the new software. So that's really what those combination of things is causing the need.
So I'm going to go in a different direction on this one. A small amount of money is probably not worth a lot of discussion, but on the other hand, we're talking 20 hours. Is there no way that we can incorporate this in the regular hours in here, prioritize some of the activities? You still have a line item in your budget for, I want to call them bonuses, but whatever the extra payments are above and beyond salary for people who achieve their goals. Wouldn't this be a nice goal to achieve something above and beyond your day-to-day activities, to earn that for this individual for the year? So it's a small amount of money, but it just seems like for 20 hours, you can find a way to work it in, prioritize some other activities in that office for a period of time to get this thing caught up versus having to have 20 hours worth of overtime to achieve.
Well, I understand your question. The real role of this department and this position is to deal with the public and making sure that they have what they need in a timely fashion, so contractors are not held up, permits are issued in a timely fashion, permit applications are processed in a timely fashion. So that would still be our priority, is to make sure that the people that access those services and who are required to by law can get timely responses. So I'd hate to put that on the back burner to do this. This is an enhancement this year because of the new software to implement all these things.
So we're talking one afternoon a week for 4 weeks to get it
Pretty much.
achieved, or, come in every
Extra hour
day,
a
but
day,
Friday, we're here
something
4
like
hours
that,
on
yeah.
Fridays. There's a way to do that without necessarily holding up the public.
It depends on the volume from the public. How many permits really are coming in, how many inspections need to be scheduled, those kind of things.
But if it's done outside of regular business hours with the door closed, and when you don't have to answer the phone, it can be done much more efficiently than when the phone's ringing and people are coming up to the counter over there asking questions. I
Absolutely.
can see where that would work.
And it's a one-time cost, it's not a recurring cost.
Right.
I'm not
Gonna happen this year.
anticipating asking for this again next year.
But there'll be 110 inspections next year that you still have to get into the system, right?
But they'll be in. This data that we're collating now and putting into the system will be live in this system. So it's just a process of, as we've done in the past without overtime, you're already set up. So whatever new data that had to be loaded into the software that wasn't able to come over from the old software, that's what we're doing this year. And next year, it'll just be a process. Because the current structure of that job includes time for these, but the added implementation of the software and what data needs to be manually inputted per location is driving this number. Next year, that information's already in. We don't have to replicate these hours with the new software.
And again, we can't use someone from another department to help out, to enter some data. I realize all departments feel that they don't have enough hours to do what they need to do, but again, I think there's a way to prioritize some of the activities or use some other resources to get this done.
I think if that was possible, he wouldn't be here asking for the transfer.
So I'll make the motion at this point, to transfer $426 from the reserve fund to the building inspector salaries and wages account.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Nobody abstained, right? So it's just 8-1. Thank you.
Can I ask Jeff a question while he's still here?
Surely.
Just related to the article, you're going to put out an RFP about, the grading and the salary chart and the comparison to
Yes.
the 10 towns and all that. Has that been put out to bid
Yes,
yet?
it's currently in the hands of the consultants. We're awaiting responses back on pricing.
Do you have a copy of what the RFP stated was going to be the goals and what we were looking for?
I can get that to the committee members.
That would be great. Just curious what was asked
And
for.
Joni's seen it as a member of the personnel committee.
I thought I had it with me, but it's in my other folder.
There was one other thing I just wanted to mention to Jeff. I didn't get a chance to go by the planning department, but I tried to participate in that Survey Monkey on affordable housing, and the survey is closed, and it was supposed to be open according to the document I got till October 11th, so I couldn't get in.
What is it? Sorry?
It's the affordable housing,
A survey on affordable housing.
yeah, it was supposed to be open till,
Well, it was closed Sunday when I
oh,
got
it
the
was.
notice.
Yeah.
I'll
Actually,
find
that's
out
a-
why.
That's a good reminder, because I meant to do that myself, yeah. It is out there.
Where is it, so we know where to go get it?
I got mine on a mailing from the senior center, so I can't help
Oh.
you. You're too young for that stuff.
It's probably on the website.
I'll email you a
somewhere.
copy, though.
Yeah, could you? That'd be
I would.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be good to have.
When is, sorry, when is it supposed to?
Supposed to close the.
Open till October 11th.
Yeah. Yeah, because I thought it was just finalized. I thought the survey itself was just finalized a week or so ago.
I went on and it came up and it said the survey's closed.
Jeff, I've been briefly meditating on your intention in the next budget to produce a tight budget. My word, not yours. Does the UMass system allow for planning a percentage of the total budget identified as contingency, in that nobody knows what tomorrow holds until tomorrow arrives? So can a percentage under the UMass system, which the town uses, just have a line, contingency and a certain figure?
I would hope so, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I would hope for something like that.
That could be drawn upon if, in your judgment, or the facts compel you to spend it, or not.
Well, I would, even if it was allowed to be in the budget, I think it would be wise to make sure that it wasn't just freely accessible by staff. I think either the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance would have to be
Right,
engaged to release those funds.
sure. Oh, yeah, it's not a, y'all come.
Right, there'd be, if there's a process we had talked in the last budget season about a process to how we were transferring funds between budget line items, because now we kind of put them into a big bucket, even though we show the public what these are things for. And I met with Barbara beforehand, and she showed me the documents she has them fill out, and then it gets signed by you and it gets signed by her. So there's a process in place for that. There was a request, and you would remember, Larry, I think it was when Sean was town administrator, for the similar type of contingency budget, and we were a little hesitant because those controls weren't being considered about who can access it, what they can access it for, and would it be documented where that money went?
Yeah, you're exactly right, I do remember, and what Sean, at the time, the TA, proposed was what in the private sector would be called a CEO's discretionary fund.
Yeah, I've never
And
believed in
He would be the
those.
one who'd say yea or nay, end of story. And I surmise that that's not at all what you're talking about.
Well, there are two different issues, I think. I think we do need some money somewhere in the budget to do, like, these type of studies in engineering. If something unique comes along, that there are money to pay a consultant or some expert in a field to do something. That's one item. But a contingency line that deals with unforeseen things,
That's the reserve fund.
That's why
well,
there is a
that's
reserve.
how it's been
That's a
used in
reserve
the
fund.
past.
Right.
And whether or not you want to engage in a contingency fund with some checks and balances on it, that's another discussion.
But that has us raising money for some purpose we may or may not spend, and we typically have, it seems like we're over raising funds in the event we might have to spend it. which I don't think we necessarily want to do. And at the same time, I think we always have controls over what gets expended through the town meeting process. And basically, it's a blank check fund for people that town meeting does have an opportunity to look into there, so.
I understand.
Oh, yeah, sure. But it would have to be one heck of a big contingency to get above pennies on the thousand. And I agree, as long as there are many fingerprints on any decision. But don't forget, any unspent money returns to the town general treasury,
Yep.
which the public owns.
I certainly appreciate the flexibility when I'm spending money on my projects, but I don't know, we necessarily got stuck of, we need to do something, and, by the time we can get the appropriation, we have a problem there, so. We seem to have mechanisms to get things done when they arise. So we look forward to
So you
further
can see there's
discussion.
some hesitancy to that particular contingency fund. But, I mean, we'll see how you want to implement it.
Well, again, a contingency fund in my mind is a larger pot of money to be, in past jobs, the contingency fund was, when you blew through your snowplow budget, you use that. When police overtime was exhausted because you had a significant incident, you used the contingency fund. So that's the contingency fund. So in my budget, I'm talking about just a few $1,000s where if I needed some engineering on something, or if I needed a survey done on a piece of property, or the selectman asked me to look into something, I could pay a consultant to go spend a few hours and get me something substantial that I could carry into a meeting.
You're
That's
looking
the
for something
different
similar
things.
to the town council budget in there that says, I don't necessarily know, I'm going to use it for it, but these are the types of things as they arise.
Right. So,
Yep.
two different things in two totally different scales.
Let's see. Next is the approval of the minutes of July 11th. So you remember it like it was yesterday.
People that were not here.
Yes, Bruce, Karen, and Jared were not here, so.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Imagine 3 are abstaining, so 6-3, thank you.
603.
603, yes, thank you. All right, any new business?
You anticipating the need for a special town meeting sometime?
Yes, after the first of the year. We're in the process of reviewing the request for proposal responses on the senior center study. As you remember, we're doing 3 separate studies, renovate the existing building, a new facility on 70 Cedar Street, or a new facility on the Shepherd property on Route 15. So there'll be 3 separate pricings when we engage this consultant. And those numbers will go to town meeting for approval of the resources to do the study.
Is 70 Main Street the current building address?
70 Cedar Street.
Oh, sorry.
It's across from the rec area there.
So you're looking to do that at a special?
Mhm.
It seems like that would be a rather large number. Why not wait?
It's just a study number.
It's
It's
the
not the
study.
renovation number.
Yeah, but you're talking 3 separate projects. I'm thinking like the little study we did for the sewer at Walker Pond was 25 grand. So by the time.
That was 20
Years ago, exactly. So I'm thinking that this is, each one of those are gonna run 45 to 60 grand. So you're talking, a significant expenditure at a special town meeting.
Didn't we
Okay.
approve a study? I know we have the rec looking at a parcel over by Cedar Lake. Wasn't Senior Center looking at another piece of
Yeah.
property over there as well? So you
I
have
think
one of
there's
those
some
already funded.
conflict between rec and the seniors on 70 Cedar Street.
Yep.
That's why I'm engaged in a process of reviewing the potential of putting it on the Shepherd property on Route 15, which is currently under conservation restriction. So we have a process or a recipe in order to make that available,
Just,
which will require some substantial work and town meeting to approve, so.
Jeff,
it's
could you
not-
clarify something for me? Is it 70 Cedar Street, or is it parcel 70, lot 70, 70?
70 Cedar Street, the
That's
same
it.
one that they were talking about where rec wants to be.
Okay, because there was another lot that was accessible from, what the heck's the next street up?
Karen Road.
Karen Road. There was another one that they were talking
It's
about
the
for
same
that.
parcel.
It's that parcel.
It's what?
It is that same parcel.
Right, it's that same parcel.
I think he ruled out 501 Main Street as a location for this.
That's what they're.
That's where they're going to park, okay. So sometime, you're saying January?
First of the year.
First of the year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All set.
Any other new business?
What did the previous senior center study do then?
It was a needs assessment. It basically outlined if they were to renovate that building, how much space would they need, and programmatic things. So this study takes that needs assessment and says, okay, this is what the needs assessment says we need. How much would it cost to put that in the existing building? And how much would it cost to build a new facility that accommodates those needs on this parcel or this parcel?
So part of that would hopefully include if we're going to look at somewhere else, what are we going to do with that building? That building
that-
over there stayed vacant for a very long time before we made use
Well,
of it.
that's not part of the study.
That consideration should be thought of in all alternatives presented, because having a building sitting empty and just falling apart for a long period of time is not a good thing.
But it's not part of the feasibility and analysis of the construction or renovation of a senior center.
And I guess I could say it's a foreseeable event due to the construction of a new senior center, so why wouldn't it be considered?
I think that's a different conversation. How to reuse an existing building is different than what's the appropriate use. Is it appropriate for what it's being used for today? If not, how do we decide how it's going to be used tomorrow? Right? That's a different conversation.
I can see it. So if a study says we can't renovate and reuse the existing building, we want to go to Plan B, this building over here, something else.
Yeah.
I
And we were funding that, then that'll be a multi-year process. Then we could sit here and say, hey, it'll be 3 years, 2 years down the road, seniors will be out of there, they'll be in a new facility. What are we going to do? How do we repurpose that so it doesn't sit around? So
Right.
we'll have a window of time to figure out what to do with that.
We shouldn't get bogged down in worrying about the building as we contemplate its use. Because we're focused on the needs of the client or the seniors. Is this building going to be appropriate? And can it be modified enough to handle their needs based upon the needs assessment? If not, then we'll have to find a new use for the building.
Bruce?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It sounds like you're taking a rather cold attitude towards the building.
No, actually, I'm not. I believe that there'll be substantial conversation about its long-term reuse if the building can't be modified enough to accommodate the needs. So I'm not making a decision because I think that's going to be a community decision, well above my individual level. So I'm saving that to be a special conversation all on its own.
Thank you.
So it sounds like there's a potential for yet another study.
Or at least a community conversation about the best use of that building.
So, when this comes back to Finance Committee before the STM, it would be interesting if you could, or someone could, I'll do it myself as well, put together a listing of all of the previous studies that have been done for the town buildings. I'm pretty sure the senior center was in there. I'm pretty sure Brookfield Road was in there,
Yes, Brookfield Road was in
which is
there.
empty.
I have all those studies. They're on my desk.
Yeah, okay. It would be
The
interesting to see.
the prior study for the senior center was the needs assessment.
I understand, yeah, no, I understand. I think there was another one done, but anyway, there were several done.
Yes.
There were several done since I've been on this committee, never mind the few that, I've heard from the old timers, that came you know. prior
And if
to-
one of them gave me a number that said, this is what it's going to cost you to renovate this building and add the 5,000 square feet contemplated in the needs assessment, we would need another study. But I don't have one that says that.
So would,
I have nothing to bring to a town meeting and say, here, I need X amount of dollars to renovate this building. I have nothing that says that.
So,
go ahead.
I just, so, the time frame, if this gets done, for reply to be back, because here's where I'm going, is why spend any money on 501, is if your studies come out and say, okay, the building
Well,
does meet that
501 is a different,
No, it's not, because this actually could be a perfect parking lot, because most people use it as a parking lot now.
what, the senior center?
Yeah.
I believe that there's interest in preserving the building in the community. I would never put that forward on my own.
Why, because it's old?
I think there is substantial interest in the fate of that building.
Historical.
The current senior center.
It's not on the
Yes.
register.
It's not.
I don't know, those aren't my decisions or my,
No, but it's something that could be considered.
sure.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm sorry, Jim, you had a
And
question.
again, that would be subject to a broader community conversation about the long-term use of that building, if in fact it's not chosen as a renovated senior center.
I just wanted to step back a second because of the confusion here. I'm looking at Article 39 from the annual town meeting, and it says, summary, the study will determine the feasibility of expanding existing recreation facilities to parcel 60 on Cedar Pond Road, but in the article it's referred to as 60 Cedar Street. On 60 Cedar Pond Road, the project will include on-site construction of synthetic turf, multipurpose athletic field, and associated parking on Cedar Street.
Yes,
So my question is, that lot directly across from the beach is for recreation use.
yes,
The lot we were talking about for the seniors, because I was their liaison, was behind that,
Yes.
accessible from Karen Road,
Yes.
from what I remember. So that's the point I was trying to make earlier. So the address, I could have sworn, the location the seniors were looking at was behind that lot.
Yes.
And it was lot 70.
yes.
Okay, thank you. That's
So-
not what I
so
heard
did-
15
did
minutes
we
ago.
fund
Also
the
wanted that-
feasibility
Pardon me?
study for 70?
Yes,
That's for a recreation field on 60.
Right.
On
that's for that
60.
rec field.
60
So the
Cedar
senior
Pond
one never
Road.
came forward or dropped off at some, I know.
It
there was-
originally started out as a combined
We
effort
were
between
talking
the
about
two.
it
They were-
together, but then I don't think that they.
So I understand what you're saying. The
can
last
separate it
senior
out.
study, I don't think we've seen a copy of that, but I understand the results where you need about 12,000 square feet with certain facilities to support the needs. I thought the recommendation was for your predecessor and others to go out and find 12,000 square feet in the town that could possibly be used for that. I'm assuming that we haven't found anything existing that we could transfer into or otherwise use for that, and that's what you're trying to do. Either add on, this study will come up with, to meet those needs, X dollars to renovate the current building, X dollars to build something new on a town-owned parcel, or to, buy or construct somewhere else.
Right, I do not believe that the town, nor would I ask, to jump out there and build a new building somewhere. Because the first question someone's going to ask is, why don't you just renovate the one you have? So we need answers to both questions. And then, what's in the best interest of the client, which is the seniors at this point? Is this building really an appropriate senior center? Or a one-story building of 12 to 15,000 square feet, whatever the needs assessment requires, is in their best interest, right? Long-term.
Jeff, is it typical to do a needs assessment? You just said we're going to do another needs assessment because there was no number. So I guess I'm a little confused. Wouldn't it make sense? And why didn't the first needs assessment give us that information?
Anything that happened prior to April 1st, 2019, I cannot answer for.
Okay.
So we don't have a number, a good number, on options on the senior center. We know what we need, we don't know how much it's going to cost, and whether or not the existing facility can be modified to an extent that provides for those needs.
So is it accurate to assume that the parameters that were given to whoever did this needs assessment were not complete.
I can't answer that.
But are the parameters for this next needs assessment that we're talking about going to be complete to include everything we need?
Yes, the RFP that we solicited, the feasibility study, because that's the stage we're at, the feasibility study, asks for a turnkey number,
Okay.
which it not only includes, the hard structure of the building, but site work, engineering, architectural, town project manager, furnitures, fixtures, and equipment, and all other ancillary things. It's a turnkey number. What's it going to cost to get us into a new building, or what's it going to cost to renovate this building? All in.
How close is the Shepherd parcel to the river?
I have no idea.
And along those lines, question for you, because I watched the board, selectmen meetings and some planning board stuff. It's come up several times over the past month and a half or so regarding the sewer line on Route
Yes.
15. When is the next discussion going to happen in this room with the selectmen so that we can all be aware of it and either attend or at least watch it on TV to find out more information?
It's Monday, isn't it?
Monday.
It's coming up
October
next
7th.
Monday? Okay, thank you, Jeff.
I was actually going to bring that up. Since, as you may recall, and I did tell Jeff, I believe it was for FY17, it was one of our issues for consideration. We were talking about the Fields project at that time, or one of the Fields projects, and we had a whole list of capital projects coming down the road, and that was one of them.
Yep. And I think there was pretty much a study done, too, to develop how far it would be to go to Route 15. And that's probably 3 or 4 years old now, and so.
But if for no other reason to be informed, we should, I guess, pay attention to that if they're going to
Yes.
discuss it for 2 hours next Monday.
But,
Again-
I guess I go back to my point when I got here last year. We had 6 or 8 of these outstanding studies that were done, paid for, and then just shelved for 4 or 5 years. And then by the time you want to go back and use them, they're not usable anymore because the numbers aren't accurate.
But this is the one somebody else wants to pay for.
Yeah, well, not
So-
really.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
why we need to get more information.
yeah.
I don't know how things were done in the past. I can't answer for that. I hope, and I would encourage, and it would be my expectation, whether incorrect or otherwise, that if we're going to do a study on a facility, and I come back with a number, or we come back with a number, at the next town meeting, that number's on there, let's get her done.
Well,
Because, wait a minute,
Yeah.
because there are needs piling up.
Yes,
Okay, because the senior center is one step.
and no one's prioritized those
Well,
needs.
it's senior center to public works to public safety, and that's the flow chart. I'm
Well-
gonna tell you why, okay? Public safety, you can't really do anything with, because you have a third floor that's encumbered with record storage. That's how we use the third, wait, let
No,
me
no, I
finish.
understand where you're going.
Okay, so DPW hasn't been touched since 19.
Oh, yeah, that's another
Okay.
one that's been there.
So DPW will be after the senior center, because DPW is gonna get a new, my 10-year plan, as of
Okay, this is good.
Okay, so DPW, we're gonna build we're gonna move the salt shed, they need a new salt shed, move it down. You're gonna build a second vehicle storage facility, you're gonna build another pole barn for vehicles that you do maintenance on, because what you have is not enough.
Right.
You're gonna get the police department's equipment that's sitting outside into that facility, plus whatever DPW equipment's not in there. You're gonna renovate the existing garage, because there's not enough office space, there's no cafeteria, there's no break room, and we have male and female employees now, which was not anticipated when we built the building in 1970, whatever. Right, we need some separate facilities, we need to upgrade the soft areas of that building to accommodate the staff. Because right now, the lunch table is a bunch of plywood on sawhorses next to the acetylene torch.
But these things have been known for a long time.
I know.
So what I want to
Right.
know is why is the senior center number 1 on the priority list?
Because it just happened to be on the top, on the list when I got here. That's what we were doing when I got here.
But have you not gone back and looked? There's way more than just those 3 capital needs you identified
let me-
and prioritize them by what
Well,
actually
I
needs to be
think
done.
at this point, the senior center was what was being contemplated when I got here. The DPW we have a study on, and the public safety facility we have a study on. And those are what I've gathered to be the path I would recommend. Okay, we do have other needs. We have ball fields, we have some other stuff, but the big three are your senior center, your DPW, and your public safety facility. So once you renovate the DPW facility, you're going to create a records storage area at DPW. You're going to create a new storage room there in that new pole barn, right, or in the existing, one or the other. Clear out the top floor of public safety and renovate that building so you can use the third floor, because we can't right now because of ADA, right? That's the flow chart. Everything gets you to cleaning out the top floor of that building so you can renovate public safety.
Still,
So if I accept your plan, and you have this 10-year plan, it'd be nice to at least see where it fits in time-wise, and while you haven't got a feasibility study or a facility study done to figure out how much it's gonna cost for the DPW versus whatever, it'd be helpful to have some ballpark numbers, so we know what the overall impact is over the next 5-10 years.
I would agree.
Time as you move forward.
But I don't have those numbers.
And then you have to see each step along the way. Do people, we get through step one, or people want to prioritize step two or something? So-
I'm still, right, there, 3 or 4 years ago, there were 6 or 8 identified needs.
Yeah, there were, well, and
They
that,
they were identified that these all need to be addressed sometime in the future. Why aren't all of them being prioritized and giving, and then have an explanation as to why certain ones are at the top of the list versus ones that other people would argue are more needed that are falling by the wayside?
Because my big three are the senior center, the DPW garage, and public safety.
There are 3 or
The wastewater plant's been upgraded to 1.3 million gallons a day. You've already approved money to renovate the Fiskill water pump station. You have a feasibility study going on for a multi-use field. Senior center,
And that's at least a
DPW.
second or a third feasibility study.
I understand.
at least.
So those are my big three.
Just seems like a lot of money going out to studies.
I agree, and it's not my intention to ever do another study for a senior center here. If it fails at town meeting, I'm moving on. I am, because you can't go backwards, because those numbers change.
Yep.
Well, I'm
There's a
disappointed-
staleness to these things.
Sorry, I'm disappointed to hear that you don't have any figures from the previous studies. You know, 25K and up for some of these studies
I agree.
of tax dollars in every case. It's.
And maybe there are numbers somewhere in a file, but they're stale.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all stamped by
You
now.
can't reuse them.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, I guess, part of going, if you go out for these RFPs, you expect them back 6 months, let's say later, if that might be even a hurry. And then you expect to act on them within 6 months after that.
Yes.
Yeah, so at
But
least
we've got a
that's much
shelf
better
full.
than we've been doing in the past.
The goal is to get the money for this next feasibility study for the senior center in the special town meeting, and have the product available for the regular town meeting to ask for whatever we need in terms of dollars to actually do the project.
So,
Wow, that is quick.
that is quick, yeah.
Yeah. Let's
That
try
is
it.
quick.
Let's try it. If
Yeah,
it works, it
I'm
works. If
all
it doesn't, it
for
doesn't,
it.
right? But again, there's a staleness to these numbers.
Yes.
Well, there are, that's for sure.
Right? So we have to look at, how do we not go stale, because you do a project, you bid the project, and you're $1 million under on a GEO bond amount that got authorized at town meeting. You call a special town meeting and ask for another $1 million? It's a little tricky, right? And the real goal to all of this is, let's do a project, let's be at least, if not on budget, close, right? If it's not on time, close, and move on to the next one. It's gonna be hard to do the second one if you really butchered the first one, right? So, it's kind of the way I look at it. But again, it all has to be within a framework of what's affordable and what's doable. Where does the debt fall off, right? Where is the revenues coming from? What's our anticipated growth and assessed value? How do all these numbers play together so we don't go from a tax rate of 1902 to significantly higher? That would not work for anybody. These have to fit within a program.
Any other new or old business?
I was hoping to end it, but that raises another question. I got my tax bill, thank you very much, but that makes me think
Tax
that we
rate went
have.
down, you know.
Yeah,
Your
but all the
assessments-
property
Your
rates. went up.
assessments went up.
It was a reval year,
That
yeah.
free cash was certified, I don't know that,
Must have been.
we've seen what free cash got
I've not
certified
seen it
at.
myself. It's still with the accountant.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's kind of early, it's usually late September.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking the tax rate had to be certified by
Oh,
the
I
state,
thought
but
it,
not the free
comes out
cash.
when they do the tax, okay, so
No,
if
no,
it
no,
hasn't
yeah,
formally
it's
come out,
confusing.
then.
No, I don't
probably
think it
haven't
has.
seen
The tax rate obviously has been set by the assessors. Okay, any other old business? I'm moving on.
Motion
Get
to
another
adjourn.
question he's dying to ask.
Well, I have a point I just wanted to make. It's not,
This
no,
is supposed
just,
to be a short meeting here.
well, no, I'm just keeping, I mean,
Yeah, what time?
I've borrowed.
midnight yet?
Oh, come on, Jeff.
If Barbara was here, she'd agree with this, because when we did the town hall center office, the committee was set up originally to be an advisory committee of the town administrator, and he would run that. That turned out to be a nightmare, and I would actually form or, whatever you want to call it, senior center construction committee, whatever.
I agree.
That is not advisory to the town administrator, but has sole discretion over the project. Because what happened in that particular project, one town administrator left, we got an interim, the interim left, we got a second interim, and those two interims did Zippo. And it made the project very, very difficult to run and manage for the people who were constantly involved.
That's why, whatever projects you do, make sure you have an owner project manager
Yeah.
on the job. And it
No,
not be
you have to by law.
Right, you have to by law, they should be running the project. And our facilities coordinator that we hired is a licensed architect.
Oh, who did you hire? Who was it?
We
Er-
hired a licensed architect. Her name's Robin. She's been on board for a few months. She's fabulous.
Oh,
And,
Great.
no, we haven't met her yet.
Licensed architect, who has in her short period of time, has done a tremendous
I
amount of
guess
good.
my point is that they can be members of the board, but the board should be autonomous, thank you, that's the good word.
Well, they should be the directors of the project.
Yeah. That's not the way that
So-
worked.
Well, and the
We took
consultants
control of
answer
it.
to them. Yeah, right. I understand. I don't disagree.
Sorry, I wanted to make sure that point was clear, because that was
Well, you were on the,
yeah. Well, I
Building
ended
committee
up
here.
chairing it at the end, yeah.
yeah. All right, anything else? Not, is there a motion to adjourn? Well, somebody say it.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Give it to him.
Mike,
Well,
I thought it was Jared, Mike.
whoever.
All in favor, 9-0.
9-0.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.